What day is it? What year?
Who are you to even think you can know the difference between good and evil?
I love movies.
What are you doing?
Yet from an infinite number of possibilities, you had to pick this one.
Fiction. I love watching them.
It's a perfectly valid explanation.
I got that beat.
Film. Cinema.
I want you to remember this moment. The way it could have gone didn't.
When does the pain end and the pleasure begin?
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Bro Safe Nerd Alert. I'm Chris and I'm here with Michael and John, and today we're talking about The Fifth Element and the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Party on. Or just,
Party on, Wayne.
yeah. So,
Yeah, we're diving deep into the 90s, going back to our 12-year-old selves.
Hi, my name is John, and I'm on a quest to ruin my childhood.
We'll also be talking about Jihad versus McWorld and getting deep into Hobbes and Locke and some other
Oh, jeez.
and Calvin.
societal ideas of freedom and democracy.
Settle down.
Calvin and Hobbes and Locke, all those motherfuckers.
Calvin's in there. Yep.
And Harvey Weinstein.
Jesus, what a room.
Douchebag.
McGee.
Douche McGaggins.
Dildo Daggins.
Yeah.
All right, so are we ready?
Yeah, let's do
Sure.
it.
Speaking of Bilbos,
Yeah. Exactly. Wonderful.
What about?
So, it's
What?
weird.
Oh, yeah. That was the best line ever. I really can't wait to do a Lord of the Rings episode because John's one-liner on
Oh, what
the
was
fucking
it?
Slack channel. He's like, I built a hobbit hole in my backyard because we were trying to like one-up each other with how big a fan of Lord of the Rings we were. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you win.
Yeah. I mean, short of I shoved the Silmarillion up my ass.
Yeah, exactly. I filleted Glamdring.
Yep. You. So we're saying that John wins the first the Golden Bro Award for his Hobbit hole.
Yes, like
All right.
John's self-made hobbit hole definitely wins the award.
All right. I told you I'm going to manufacture Golden Bro Awards. Right. I'm going to take those
that's
action
awesome.
figures, and I'm going to just, I don't know, find a round Oscar sort of base to glue them down to, and then I'm going to spray paint them gold.
I love it.
Yeah.
So John's the first recipient. Okay.
Absolutely. You are this week's Golden Bro.
I'm going to take a second to back up, though, from our it's been a couple weeks, but when we talked about our mic check episode, I wanted to go back and tell you guys the thing that I'd been watching that I was like, you might actually dig a lot on is Love, Death, and Robots. Have you seen
I've
any
heard
of
about it.
that?
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. It's a collection of sci-fi and like horror shorts. You definitely need to get in there and check them out because some of them are only like 16, 15 minutes long, but they're so good. Like, there are 3 in particular that I would say, like, yes, watch this because they would give us a lot to work with, I think, down the line.
Yeah, I've caught a couple of them, but I didn't really make a note of it at the time. They're really good, though.
The only thing, because I forgot what got me assed up a couple weeks ago, I was going to laugh about, but the one thing when I went back and listened to the episode 0 was John's audible sigh when I mentioned 1917 and how good of a movie it was. And he was just like, meh. I was like, I need to go fight John Dayton.
Yeah.
All right. Why is that a meh, John Dayton? Let me get your take on it first. Well, then we can fight before we dive into the episode.
Put me on the spot here.
I think we are.
Are we in the episode?
I think we're in it.
Okay, all right. Well,
Episode 1, we are in you. Maybe that could be our intro.
Showed up like the Kool-Aid man.
I mean, all the rapiness is definitely it fits right in with where we're going as far as the Fifth Element.
It might not fit in, but we're gonna make it fit.
Oh,
Jesus.
ding.
There goes my political career.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying the
So-
ding sound effects are going wild right now.
Yeah,
sure.
I can hear them. So 19, I don't know. I thought it was pretty.
You could just leave it at that.
Okay.
It was pretty because Roger fucking Deakins shot it. Roger Deakins has like 30 Oscar nominations.
Yeah.
He is a master.
I don't know. I'd like to watch it again. I don't know. I remember after I watched it,
I mean, yeah.
I didn't really know like what to take from it.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, story-wise, it's very limited. You know, the plot line's just very straightforward. But the thing is, they execute that in such a. Wait, Chris, have you seen it yet?
No, I have not.
What? You haven't seen it? Sorry.
And I was just staring.
I thought
I'll just stare at my cat until you guys are done.
I will
with this.
say the amount of like what looked like single shots, like it was amazing,
yeah.
and I think that added a lot to. I think it highlighted to me how much cutting and editing can impact a film and how different it is when you just have a single shot. Yeah. There was Children of Men had a really long children, and it's one of my favorite movies.
That's the same, yeah.
I think that with stuff like that, it's kind of the same with, it's similar to some of the music that I listen to. I would describe it as musicians' music.
Yeah.
And if you're a musician, and if you're just an art rock,
like progressive
prog
rock and stuff,
douchebag, it's like the best thing in the world. But
what are those guys called?
but it's like Dream Theater.
Dream Theater.
But good luck finding a female fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and I mean, ridiculous stereotypes aside, sometimes I think that you're marveling at these amazing single shots in this movie that I haven't seen, and it's really, is it awesome because it really serves the movie, or is it awesome because it's just well execued and you're a fan? You know what I mean? There is a
right.
There's definitely a Venn diagram
Totally.
there.
And in this case, I mean, maybe I'm slightly biased because like I just love Roger Deakins. Like he's shot so many of like the most iconic movies that we know of in like the last 30. And she's like, "Oh, there's a cat," or he's like, "There's a cat and it's dead."
All right.
Can I get on this?
really quickly, sorry, dude. It just totally screwed up Mike's. I don't want to hear
It's
your
fine. I
answer,
will
but
say it.
I got a new kitten, and the kitten is playing with the boom mic microphone cover that, ironically enough, is called a
Dead cat.
Yeah, there you go. Sprinkle some cyanide on there, and
know
you'll have two dead cats. So sorry, you were saying?
So, in the case of 1917, it's a little bit of both because I feel like, yes, it's a spectacle, like you're saying. There's that spectacle side of it that is cool, and it's well executed on a technically proficient level. But it's like in the same way, I felt like it was in service to this story. And again, a period of time that we don't usually get a lot of World War I. I mean, and you got to think, like, I don't know if you guys saw that documentary that, excuse me, saw that documentary.
Do not edit that out.
No, that it was called They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson.
Yeah, and you got to think this was 100 years ago now.
Yeah,
that World War I was fought, and I'm just like in awe watching this whole movie, on the edge of my seat, so tense. And I'm like, the reason why they're doing unbroken shots is because they really want you in it with them, and to feel that sense of urgency that is going between every scene. And I thought it was so masterfully done and so beautiful. I mean, you look at Roger Deakins' body of work, and the fact that he's only won the Oscar twice, but he's been nominated like 30 times is criminal in my mind. But yeah, I mean, to me, it maybe wasn't the best movie last year. Maybe not for what it said or what it achieved, but it definitely was the prettiest movie last year.
And I mean, it's talk about bias. I can almost guarantee I'm going to find some stuff to enjoy about it. I love World War I movies.
Same, yep.
It's also my favorite era of aviation.
Yep.
The whole biplane thing. Just the idea that the
it's
people who made a biplane, they timed the machine gun to fire
between
through
the
the propeller. Imagine if your timing belt was misaligned on that thing. It
would
does
happen.
not end well.
No, I mean, it's oh god, like because that was when dogfighting and stuff like that really started to take off. And oh man,
What do you do with planes? I don't know. Just fly them like they're giant
Right.
horses.
yeah, we'll fly over troops and
Don't
maybe
change the
drop
strategy
stuff on
at
them.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the wings are like made out of paper.
Yeah, no,
balsa
exactly.
wood.
Oh man, we could go deep into that.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's basically all I wanted to say about
I
1917.
would agree. Because that type of shot, I think, makes a certain type of intimacy because real life doesn't have cutscenes and editing,
exactly,
right? And so,
exactly.
to me, it's easier to get sucked into it when it's a single shot.
I agree.
Because it's just consistent. And so I think for that film, and given the topic matter, it worked it worked really well.
The sound. I mean, I went and saw it in the theater. So if you saw it on the small screen, cool. But I mean, I think what really drew me in was just the sound design, and it was so well integrated. Just you feel every gunshot snapping and whizzing by your head, and you're like, holy shit! Like I'm with here. I'm in it with this guy. You know, the walls have dropped, and I'm walking with him down this trench, and it was just yeah. I mean, few movies can do that for me.
You've got me really excited to see it. I mean, even from being a small child, I feel that the sound design is one of the things that arguably, this is like a teaser for an upcoming episode, saved A New Hope. I feel like the sound work. I don't want to be that controversial, but I say that it's in really all the Star Wars movies, but especially in like the first one, the sound really helps you suspend disbelief.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right, Chris. I mean, sound design and the fact that A New Hope was saved in the edit at all is the reason why it's lauded, you know, as being one of the better Star Wars movies, because they were able to go back and trim it and pace it and get rid of all the cheesy shit that George Lucas wanted in there.
Yeah, right on. So sometimes you can resurrect a film in editing, and then sometimes
save it in post.
Yeah, and then sometimes you end up with Solo.
Yeah, or Rogue One, as I watched last night, actually, because I'm finally catching up and rewatching some of these, and I was like, oh man, I wanted to like that movie so bad.
We might have to have an argument about that, but I do want to save it.
Yeah, we'll save it.
I feel that we need to. Yeah. Real quick, just the mother of all single take shots, in my opinion, is a film that I want to showcase in an upcoming episode. I really want you guys to watch it, and I'm going to mention it every week until you do. Yeah. One Cut of the Dead. That's the Japanese zombie film.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's right. I remember you.
If you're into single shots, I think the first half hour of the movie is a single shot.
That's that's on my watch list. I've been logging the shit out of movies lately, just trying to like go down through the pull idea, which is also funny. Something I wanted to mention is just ever since we started doing this, I'll be cleaning or in my laundry room or fixing dinner and thinking, that's a good idea. We should talk about that in the podcast. Like I'll be sitting on the toilet being like, that's a good idea for the podcast. Let me write that down. So if you see me posting a lot like digression topic, colon and then a bunch of string of shit after it, it's because it's something I thought of and I was like, we need to talk about that.
That's good use of colon.
Yep.
It was there, and you plucked it off that tree, John. So a little how the sausage is made stuff for the three people listening to this. We have moved our show planning and our conversing over to this piece of software called Slack in hopes of organizing it into relevant topics.
Being professional. It's called being professional.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You
have an air of professionalism, right?
Yeah. Have air quotes professionalism.
Yeah. Okay. Something else I wanted to touch on too that I think we dropped. We mentioned the inside last week, but I'd also like to follow up on that a little bit and say like I'd like to report a murder. So in October, in October, our movie went to a film festival down in Georgia called Horror Film in Hotlanta. And anyway, my buddy Kevin, who played one of the lead roles there, he and his fiance, his wife, and some friends all went to it, and it was being held in a brewery. Long story short, I think there was some tension over technical delays and things with the scheduling, and when pressed to ask the director like what's going on, like why is our show going on so late, she decided to pull the plug on it and kick them all out. I mean, I won't conjecture that it's because they're African American, and it's she seems like a very genteel, like Southern lady. But I wouldn't doubt if there was something in that vein, because it sounded like she was a little surprised when he showed up and was like, "Hey, I'm here to represent the inside." She's like, "Wait a second, you're not Michael."
There's a pretty little white girl on that cover.
Exactly.
So I'm not trying to be blind to the to the awful shit like that in the world.
Yeah.
I hope it's not that, but
I hope so too.
yeah.
But I
It's
mean,
probably just incompetence more than anything.
that hopefully is just it. But long story short, what happened was they decided to take away our laurel official selection, and they punted the project, which I think was a shit move because then it prevented us from reviewing the
Right.
festival on the platform Film Freeway. So we got all of our filmmaker friends together and we bombed their Facebook page and took their rating down to 2.0 out of 5, and then reported them to Film Freeway. And then we checked back last week, and the festival was gone from the film festival circuit, and they had deleted their Facebook page, and now they've renamed it so the Southern Film Festival or Short Film Festival or something like that. And it made me feel good because I was like, well, we did warn them. We said, look, all you got to do is just reinstate our status. You can make this all go away. Just give us back official selection.
And I think the main takeaway from this, or one of the important takeaways from this, is artists are already spending their own money. They're already hungry because they don't have enough money. They're already ripping their heart open to make something to then show to everybody to get judged. So if you're dealing with artists and you're dealing with art and you try your normal like bullshit corporate moves on an artist, be prepared for
Right, the
a
backlash.
shitstorm of justice.
Right. No, and that's. I mean, we laugh about it now. I mean, I felt much more strongly about it then, I guess, and maybe I'm not explaining it with as much gusto as I had before. But yeah, I mean, we felt pretty like righteous anger.
And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers.
I was gonna say a moment of silence for this shitty little film festival, and then insert that trolley violin song.
Or taps, or just
exactly. I mean, we did warn her. I said, look, all you gotta do is give us this. And so she emailed me back and said, I will not be pushed around. And I'm like, well, okay.
Then you will be destroyed.
Exactly.
Sorry, I've
Bring
been,
out the emperor.
I've been listening to. I just choked down episode 9.
Oh God. Well, let's talk about good sci-fi. I mean, I had a bunch of digression shit in here we can get through, but one thing. I mean, do you guys want to talk about The Fifth Element? We've got it on here.
I have some.
Do we want to do news first? This is us trying to have a format.
Yeah.
Or was that news?
I mean, no, that was more just like my bullshit that I was gonna throw in last episode, but we ran over.
That's right. We did do the check-in with everybody thing
Yeah.
too, and I thought that was natural. So we want to give.
Hopefully, we're keeping.
Do we want to check in with John?
Okay.
I haven't done anything since the last episode.
And
No, I've continued to work on the laundry room, and that's about it.
John Dayton, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I apparently have nothing to do in my life.
Has anybody gotten asked up about anything in the last week?
No.
I mean, I think it's, and this dovetails into the news segment because if we're gonna actually go there with politics, but I'm pretty happy that Mayor McPete is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he was the worst of the centrists, and I use that term very loosely.
Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah,
He drops out.
I was kind of surprised. I'm equal. Oh, Tom Steyer?
Time
He
Steyer.
dropped out, yeah.
I'm less surprised about that. And I'm even more surprised that the Tulsi Gabbard, that she's still in it.
Is she?
I
Or are
think, yeah,
people just
officially.
voting for her? Because I thought
keep
she dropped
seeing her
out
name.
a long time ago.
No, I don't think she's officially dropped out. She just hasn't been able to qualify
she's just
for
not
anything.
running. And okay. So people, I wonder if she's just being written in. Because, yeah, you're right. I saw 1% for her.
I'm not sure what her ballot coverage is.
We should just send an email to the KGB and ask.
I know one piece of news in politics that Chris and I were going to argue about was the 1996 telecom bill.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we can. Do you want to go down that road?
Oh, absolutely.
This is a huge digression.
And
Sorry.
I really don't. My only defense of it. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, you introduce it and then.
So, we were talking about things Bill Clinton achieved, I guess, in his presidency, and
Should we list a few of them?
sure,
Jogging to McDonald's. That's
yes,
one.
that was good.
blowjobs from a girl that was way too young for him.
Also pretty good.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Not a Republican.
So one particular good point, I guess, of his presidency was that I mean, I use this term loosely because I always was under the impression that it wasn't a good thing, was the passage of the 1996 telecom bill, which allowed for media mogul or media giants to consolidate and like push all the news and media that we consume under like giant umbrella corporations, which have all basically filtered down to give us what we have today.
God, I wish I'd actually done some research on this segment because I swear that W was responsible for also throwing down a ruling or passing a law that helped with that too. But not to diminish just how awful a thing that was for our democracy, and that's
right. I mean, I guess that's where we're going with this as a democratic debate because I mean, not the party, but I mean like democracy, like liberal democracies all around the world in relation to that. And I guess this feeds into a documentary that I just watched called Freedom for the Wolf. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Prime. It's really fucking good, and it talks about illiberal democracy and this massive worldwide push like around people that are just becoming disenfranchised with the promise, I guess, that liberal democracies have given. And because it's given freedom to the wolf, they basically are buying people down with air quotes freedom to buy things while diminishing people's freedom in the political process. So taking away like civil liberties and diminishing your choice at the ballot box and things of that nature, but allowing, for a middle class to go out and consume and have consumerism has sort of like we've seen it, with the overall quality of life sort of kind of going down for folks around the world, I guess, because like we've expected, change and things to be.
I rewind back to 1997, the first time that I had met Domenico's mother in person, picked her up at the airport. We roll out to the local Exxon station to buy a soda because she's thirsty. And this is where the first time that I really got a glimpse of consumerism as a way to kind of overwhelm and numb out and distract. She walked up to the soda case, and her mouth just was like, hit the floor. She was just in awe of it. I said, well, what's wrong? What's going on? And she's like, there are just so many different types of soda in America.
Yeah, exactly.
and I
freedom.
So
well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about freedom. Everybody loves
freedom to numb out on material possessions that at the end of the day don't bring you happiness.
Right, but it's like, do you really have freedom? Freedom for what? Freedom to do what? Freedom of what? What do you really have freedom if you can't go to the polls and vote? Like, or your ability
or vote
to
meaningfully, right? In the case of Russia,
yeah, right. Or I mean, I'm talking here. I'm talking even in the U.S., like where
sure, freedom to choose which dollar store you buy your groceries from in a poor community.
So there's in politics. This goes back to a guy, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who's like this bougie French guy who, by all accounts, was a terrible person.
Yeah.
But he
had a good thought once.
But he was I think he was smart. I think in a lot of ways it was kind of one of those things like you needed to be the worst to understand the worst, and therefore could we are the worst. So you shouldn't. Right. And so, not to go on like a scree here.
No, it's fine. I mean, this is
by
why
all means, let's do it.
But like rich people back then, like they just sat in cafes and like talked to each other and pontificated about things. And so there was a guy, Thomas Hobbes, who wrote about like the nature and what the nature of man is, and he said nature is a war of all against all, which is and he's basically the origin of real politic, right? And so this guy Jean-Jacques Rousseau came along a little bit later, and he was like, no, I don't think that's the nature of man. I think what you've talking about is taking a modern man and dumped him naked in the woods and said, good luck. And so, of
Yeah,
course, we're all
yeah.
terrible in doing these things. And so he kind of did this like genealogy and went back and like, what did original man work? He probably didn't have language at first, right? So
yeah.
he's trying to interact with people. And at a certain point, he could like communicate his needs and his wants to other people, but he didn't know enough that like he could create a bunch of bad stuff. And so like life was probably like pretty good for this primitive man. Then over time, as you learn more things and build more things and have more things that can get injured and are part of your property, that's where you get to modern man now. And so what he said is like, how do you protect against this, right?
Yeah.
And so there's negative freedoms and positive freedoms, right?
Hold on.
We got a helicopter.
Do you hear the black helicopter?
Oh my God, the NSA, they're coming.
That's perfect. They're like, he's getting ready to.
We're gonna have to drop a.
All of a sudden, a sniper
Sidewinder.
rifle takes out John from the window because he's like, that truth cannot be known.
Yeah. Sidewinder missile drop.
That was like that was the dollar store army coming to.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Right,
go
no,
ahead.
okay. So
Tom.
positive and negative freedoms, right? And so negative freedoms is a freedom that keeps the government from doing something to you, right? It keeps something away. So like we can't. That's where like due process comes from. We can't hold you without reason. You have to thing, but you have to have positive freedoms, right? You said you can't just be like free from oppression. You have to be given opportunity to do stuff. Yeah. And and he was building off of this. In between Hobbes and Rousseau, there's a guy named John Locke, and it's where a lot of our legal philosophy comes from on where property comes from. Locke said you mix your labor with something, and now you've mixed with it, and that's where the divine right to own something comes from, which is very like the bedrock of modern property rights.
Divine, eh?
Well,
I'd love to crack that open.
It was
but
1600s. So,
No. It totally relates, and I'm gonna hook up right after he.
But Locke said, look, but you have to have as much and as good for everyone else to be able to. It's Lockean provisio, right? That always kind of gets forgotten. It's like, yeah, you can go and build your oil rig and extract your oil, but everyone else needs to have the same opportunity, right? As if you were to expand it, right? He used, I think, an orchard or something. So anyway, so go back to Rousseau, and Rousseau comes on, is like, to have these rights and for us to be able to logically say that we all have these rights and we deserve them, you have to have these positive freedoms that also make sure that people have those opportunities to do things. Otherwise, the negative rights don't mean anything if you don't have any opportunity.
No, it's totally true. I mean, it's funny that you talked about the nature of man, because that almost verbatim, they were interviewing leaders from the political party in Tunisia in this documentary that I was watching, and they were talking about the nature of man, and they're saying how the nature of man is to want more religion in the government, not less. So this is their condemnation of secular government and why they think that liberal democracy isn't necessarily the answer, and that's like why I think that this relates to the world as a whole, and why you see like uber conservative bases of people coming together against the illiberal, democratic movement, and saying we need to break this down and we need more faith in our governments and and slide more towards like an authoritarian style run. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, that's like maybe it's more regional, or maybe it's something.
So I'm sorry, we're just because I kind of missed. So is the documentary make the case that we need more authoritarianism?
No, it's just
okay. Good.
It's no. It's basically
Because I'm pretty much over it.
No, it definitely is just examining, since maybe the Arab Spring, like or 2014, especially like in China and stuff like that. Like it's the same thing with Hong Kong. Like you have a bunch of people that are saying we need freedom in the political process, because everybody who's looking around saying, oh, we have freedom, and it's really all it is just you have the freedom to go buy stuff now and be completely removed from the choice of who your leaders are and what those leaders do, and we're constantly, I feel like we're fighting against that here,
and
especially
it
with
really
Trump,
is it really is consumerism and people's love, and I'll go so far as to say worship of money.
Yep.
That, and we see it kind of. I would say the worship of money in its most honest and transparent form is in hip hop. In hip hop, they're always talking about, I'm going to get these things.
Right.
I'm going to kill somebody to get these things, or I have these things. Look at how many things I have.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I feel like we have.
There's a really good documentary about that if you want to watch it.
I feel like we've
about the hip hop movement.
Poisoned. I feel like we've poisoned our society to get people so hopped up on that they just.
If you subject an
so
entire
sad.
group of people to Jim Crow and slavery,
Yeah.
you know, for as long as America has been around, you know, the black population in this country has been, you know, subjected to some form of prejudice or another, even today.
Yeah,
And
redlining. The list goes on.
It's an
and on.
understatement of the century. But what I'm saying is, now you have a group of people that are like, you know, we want to get there. We want to have the good life. You know, we want to have material wealth and possession, and we see how it is, you know, with this consumer culture that we're all kind of brought up in. And it's like, now it's our turn. It's like, I get it.
And if you don't give me a seat at that table, I'm going to come take it from you,
Right.
motherfucker.
Exactly.
So it's like,
So I don't begrudge that, but I understand that it's also like
I
a symptom
didn't
of
bring
a
it up
larger
to
problem.
judge.
Yeah.
I brought it up as a father whose son makes a lot of hip hop music, and he explores those themes. It's kind of got me to meditate on them some, and I'm just like, wow, it's amazing. And then so. And obviously, materialism is not. Nobody has a exclusive right on it, but it's just.
Yeah.
It's just really just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, there's a whole huge thing we could go down there as far as like changing our psychology to try to drive us away from the acquisition of material wealth. Like right now, if we're going to go to a Star Trek reference, like right now we're all Ferengi, and it's like we want to get to be that. The Federation, you know.
Oh, I agree.
We have to change like
Star
what
Trek.
we value.
And I mean, we're all three of us are artists and makers. So
Yeah.
you know, I think I do think that promoting that in even the local community can make a
totally.
difference. You know, or just even encouraging your friends to, you know, hey, maybe you should make art again. You know, I really liked when you did that thing. Or
Go ahead, John. Yeah.
I was gonna say, to me, a lot of it comes down to identity, right? Back in the early aughts, there was, and I think it came from an article in the late 90s called Jihad versus McWorld, right? And it talked about these two kind of tribal forces, McWorld being consumerism.
I'm so glad
peak,
you brought that up. I forgot all about that.
Jihad was just, it wasn't just in reference to like Muslim extremism, but any types of tribalism. And at the end of the day, like, this isn't a new thing. Like, humans are tribe. We're tribal people. And to me, a lot of it comes down to what your sense of identity is, right? And the reason why I think religious identity in particular, but it's certainly not exclusive to that. It can be any other things. Is it's usually defined around excluding someone else, excluding either behavior and otherizing something. And it's very comfortable. And when do you need comfort is when you are uncomfortable, right? And I think for a period, at least, the people that had power and can actually do something.
I'm gonna stop you right there, and I say I think the problem is that motherfuckers need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Well,
that's actually a core tenet of my belief system.
yeah.
No,
So
yeah.
that's no. I think that's important.
And I mean,
Rant over.
No,
Sorry.
no. I think that's true. I think I like staying on. A friend of mine has a phrase called horns. It's not just his phrase, but the horns of a dilemma, right? And he likes to stay on that, where you keep constantly going back and forth through the things. And so I think being comfortable with uncomfortableness and staying in that loop, I think, is a good thing. But I honestly just meant more practically, like people having their basic needs met.
No,
right?
totally.
And I think when you look now, so what I was gonna say is, for a period, at least if you were for a white and male, right, post-war, like every white male was more or less comfortable, right?
Yeah.
You're either in Europe and you're getting your whole bombed out country being rebuilt, or in the United States living the dream.
Right.
And I think what has certainly happened as time gone on, and this isn't the first time, the have and the have-nots are so clearly divergent, right? And I think what this does is it makes everyone uncomfortable, and the reaction to that is to find solace in tribalism. Now, I think there was a study a while back on Japanese macaques, and how are Japanese macaques related to this? Let me tell you why. So you have, I think they're macaques. They had two sets. They gave them like some type of bland food as a reward for something, and then they had grapes. and they gave one the bland food, and they were all fine. Eventually, when they're in this behavior routine where they get the reward after they do the right behavior, eventually they started giving grapes to the other person, and the other macaque would take the bland food and throw it. It would not accept it as a reward because he knew someone else had grapes.
Right.
And I don't think that's any different than people. I think if everyone on the planet was suffering and the worst poverty we had, but everyone was that, then you wouldn't have the same recourse to tribalism. And that's not to say that it doesn't exist or that it's not real. I think it highlights the fact that addressing people's needs and having a good baseline is imperative to everyone.
I mean,
Absolutely, and I do think that people crave validation or a certain amount of sameness. I think people crave that. But and there's a light and a dark aspect to everything. So I do think there's a light aspect to, having your tribe running with a pack.
That's how we talk.
Yeah.
literally.
Sure.
no, I mean,
So
But I think that's that uncomfortable with uncomfortableness. I think when you get to the more existential way to deal with this angst is being more comfortable with identity.
Yeah.
And realizing that identity isn't a fixed point, right? And being that comfortable with uncomfortableness is how you get through it, because you're always. When I'm dead, you might be able to write some stuff down, and that's who John was. But as I'm living, I'm not done. Who I am is not finished.
Exactly.
And just I know that the tighter that I cling to something, whether it be an ideal or or an expectation I put on another person, it's just every single time it's just a recipe for disappointment. So I try to I've tried to, in my old age, I'm playing the age card now, just be a bit looser with stuff like that. I would like it if my son did his chores, but if he doesn't, actually, if he doesn't, he's going to be grounded. That's a separate. I'll save that for therapy.
Well, I think that's a good point. Being relaxed or whatever you want to call it with your sense of identity is not the same thing as being passive.
Yeah.
Right.
Well said.
It's just being
Compassion
present.
does not mean being passive.
Right.
I mean,
I want to be compassionate aggressive. Is that a thing?
Who wrote Jihad versus McWorld again? Was that Friedman or
No.
I'm trying to remember that guy's name. But anyway, I read that, and I'm just saying when he wrote that in the early thousands, I think.
Because it was an article and then it was a book later.
Yeah, I think if he had written that today, his conclusions would be different, because I think Jihad.
No, it's 95.
I think Jihad is winning out, despite the promise that the liberal democracies and how we would, all things would be McWorld has given us this promise, of everybody being healthy, wealthy, and happy, and losing the negative identity aspects that you're talking about. But we're still sliding towards jihad, and everybody's kind of leaning on authoritarianism in some of the biggest countries in the world, like China and India. And they have stuff.
Let's say I don't think McWorld was certainly a good outcome. And I think it's just globalism in general, right?
Yeah.
And it's market forces, and markets, if they can co-opt nirvana, they can co-opt religion just as well.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know, man.
It's really, I think a lot of it just comes down to haves and have-nots. I had dinner with what I could best define as a group of Trump supporters yesterday. Let's just say 3-4 years ago they were Trump supporters,
right.
And more so supporters of the party that Trump is currently affiliated with. And I swear to you, about a third of the, I want to say 9 to a dozen people that I was dining with, they are all totally open to voting for Sanders. And it kind of blew my mind. And then I was wondering, well, why? And there is a host of reasons, but I think that people who perceived Trump as somebody that would help them and their tribe move forward, people are starting to wake up to the fact that, well, we were worse off than we were 4 years ago. And it's funny because these are people that I never thought would ever say, I'll pull the lever for Bernie Sanders. These are evangelicals.
I think it's two sides of the same coin. It's just like the folks in China. It's like they want, they perceive like we do, but in a different sense, that our ability to have political freedom and involvement in the process, because money and lobbyists and the rich have taken over and are making all of the political decisions, and maybe they don't feel like they have any sort of say in that, whatever policy issue it is that's bothering them that they are latched onto. Bernie supporters, by and large, are more liberal, but I mean, I get that maybe there's a crowd of folks that definitely want to latch on to something that Trump's saying, as far as like wanting to shake up the political order and give political power back to that group, that feel like they've been somehow diminished over time.
Absolutely. And just to paraphrase what the one dude said, I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but he's like, I'm going to go ahead and pull the lever for Bernie, because if he's really the devil that everybody is saying he is, then the world's going to end, and I'm going to I'm going to go to the pearly gates. He's like, and if they were wrong, then I have my college, then I have my tuition paid off, and then I actually maybe have a few bucks for my family.
It's also something I fucking hate, is just the conservative right wing, like, apocalyptic fetish that exists in all aspects of our political.
I mean, you're not going to talk anybody who believes in that out of it, I don't think.
I mean, I don't mean to be offensive to anybody that believes, but I'm just getting, like, the older I get, the more I guess aggro I get against the idea of religion encroaching on our secular institutions. So I'll just leave it at that.
I think there's a case.
Religion, you could very easily make the argument that religion suffers too as a result of that.
I think there's a defense to be made for faith, which I think is a much maligned term. Organized religion is a problem.
Yeah,
and is historically.
I don't think it's the organization that's the problem. I think that it's the problem with organized religion versus other organizations is in other types of organizations you have process improvement mechanisms by which you can, I'm going to trigger, evolve. Do I dare say evolve? And religion is very much here's what we believe, and you believe something different or don't believe it, so you're wrong and or evil and or we need to try to save you. Oh, and we're not going to change.
Let's let John have the last word on this, because we've already hit politics and religion, so now we need to kind of like pull the trigger on the fifth element.
Coming up next, snack foods.
I swear this is all going to tie into the fifth element, because I'm telling you, like, what I'm thinking is the fifth element represents a bright, dynamic, prosperous future, but it's also like kind of a comedy in the sense that it's also authoritarian and there's garbage everywhere. And I'm like, wow, that's just what we're heading towards.
Hold on. Let's go ahead, John.
Go ahead,
Give
John.
us
take us back to faith.
Take us back to faith. No, I just I think people choosing a metaphysical and existential framework to believe in order to ground their morality and ethics, I think that's fine. And I think it can be useful for dealing with some of the realities of life. It's just the issue becomes, right, when... Yeah. And the reason I said organized religion is because it's any organization, and historically religion and government were the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Kings were divine things, and it was tied to the church.
Mm-hmm.
It's historically, they weren't like an NGO, right? Sides, they were the government, right? The problem is just when belief, which isn't the same thing as faith, right? Faith... There's, oh God, I'm such a nerd. There's a guy, Kierkegaard.
This does not sound like you're wrapping this up.
So anyways, that's it. I just, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
All right, I got you.
So, our movie today is...
The Fifth Element.
All right, just for, we can maybe edit this out, but should I read like the one sentence synopsis from IMDb?
Please.
And then does somebody else want to read some of the... And I'll do like the top 4 or 5 on cast. I mean, 5 or 6 people on
from your memory, you can take us through the plot. We'll jump in.
No, I want to hear what IMDb says about this film.
Yeah, so real quick. So today's movie is The Fifth Element. Here's the description from IMDb. In the colorful future, a cab driver unwittingly becomes the central figure in the search for a legendary cosmic weapon to keep evil and Mr. Zorg at bay. Boy, that sounds like crap when you know.
Dude, it's the worst.
If that's okay, and so just for cast, we have Bruce Willis playing one of the Bruce Willis variations.
Yep.
We have Gary Oldman as the bumbling, evil Zorg. We have Ian Holm. I forgot he was in it as Cornelius.
Bilbo.
Yeah, we have Bilbo Baggins.
Hey, don't knock him. He's had an Oscar nomination.
That's true. We have Mia Jovovich as Lilu, and who didn't fall in love with her in this movie? And we have Chris Tucker as comic relief Ruby Rhod.
I didn't even put him in my notes because he's definitely the bad part of this. There are worse parts of this movie, but
Oh my God, I'm such a fan of him in this because it's a comic book.
Yeah,
it's I would make the argument that this is the ultimate comic book movie.
Yeah,
I don't know what to think because all I had was like 97, so I was 13 when this came out.
That's a good point. Let's back this up to
So
1997.
I must have my memory of like
You were in
13 to
6th
18-year-old John, who probably watched this a couple times, and I was like, "This is a good movie. It was fun."
No, it was amazing for 12-year-old boys.
But looking back, I'm like, God, were the 90s always this casually misogynistic?
Dude, it's I mean,
I
it's
was like, oh my God.
speaking about misogyny, and Chris, a lot of the things you might be looking up on there on IMDb, I took some notes on, so we have that to pull on if we need it.
Yeah, I didn't realize it had been that long since the movie came out.
Isn't it nuts?
Yeah.
So go ahead, John.
Because
you go first.
this was right after like Stargate came out, right?
Right.
Stargate was like 95 or something.
An amazing quintessential 90s movie.
And so I was like, this has got it all. It's got like future sci-fi, like a little dystopian. It's got a hero, and he's like he's a good guy, and he just needs love.
Exactly.
Just
love
really
conquers all.
This isn't about the supreme being of the universe who is the perfect.
He needs
encapsulation.
love and maybe a longer cigarette. Do you remember the tiny cigarettes in the movie?
Well, I like
filter.
That's
it's like all filter and like a little bit of tobacco at the
that's
end.
the whole other thing. Like, I could just spend an hour talking about what we thought the future would be in 1997, because there's just it's certainly more telling about, I guess, like any futuristic, more telling about the 90s. Anyways,
I think the one thing that I challenge any of you to argue with real quick is go ahead.
No. It's gone.
Is just the look of the movie. The movie I think it's a beautiful looking movie. I love the way everything is designed in it. I also have a shit ton of bias because Luc Besson utilized, if not heavily leaned on, the comic artist Mobius, who I highly recommend you guys check out.
Familiar.
Yeah. I just think Mobius should do all of the set design for all sci-fi.
Chris, he didn't even lean on him. He stole like all the guys' designs and leveraged it all.
Did he really?
He didn't pay him and hire him for the gig, or
he paid him for something small, and then when the movie went into production and he made a bunch of he made no residuals on the back end. Like he basically, and the guys end up suing him later on. But that's a side topic. Go ahead.
Let me start with
that makes me sad.
Yep.
So let me talk what I liked about the movie, having watched it a bunch of time later and just completely different place apparently than I used to be. I liked the aesthetic of the movie. I thought the acting was really good. Like if you ignore the plot itself and everything else, I thought the lines were delivered well. Like Gary Oldman's little accent and tics were pretty cool.
Sure.
Bilbo was fine. Bruce Willis was good.
Bruce Willis was Bruce Willis. Yeah.
And
he's been playing the same
such a
character.
timepiece.
And I like that character.
And so
whatever, I'll take it.
I thought that was already. And the other thing I'm really surprised is how well they did CGI.
Yeah.
Like, because they did a really good job of mixing practical effects with the CGI. Yeah. Like when Gary Oldman delivers the guns to the, I forget what they're called, the little thug
Mangaloreans.
Yeah, is that what they're?
Something, yeah. Pangalores.
So they did like the CG and then it
Not
transitioned to a
Mandalorians.
practical, right? And they transitioned to practical effect. So I thought like the effects were done. Considering it's 97,
no,
like,
you're right.
This is held up a lot better than like the animatronic Jaws did for us.
A lot of that work in that movie was actually miniatures, and I think that's why it looks so damn good and it can hold up on those close-ups.
I think that's how.
Yeah, and Blade Runner as well. There's another example of like I'm amazed at how well that held up.
Because they couldn't render most of that in CG yet. That was just not there. I mean, I think some shots are CG, but I think by and large, like the cars flying around and stuff, but the city and the spaceships and things, those are all models.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's my list of what I liked.
I mean, if you don't mind me backing up,
Yeah.
Chris, and jumping on you before you.
Back that thing up, man.
Yeah. All right. So 1997. This is an interesting period in time because I read that Luc Besson started writing this script when he was 16.
Oh God, that explains so much.
He started putting it in together then, and then 30 years later, he comes out with this thing, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is why Luc Besson's movie is so titillating to 12-year-old boys, because I thought it was the best thing ever. I saw this movie in the theaters, and it was, I think it was it PG-13?
Probably because the pussycat joke is double entendre instead of actually.
But we see Mila Jovovich just boobs, and I just remember going in and being like, boobs. And
I think you
being
can do that PG-13.
Oh my God. So, and I wanted to link this up to my friend Columbo, who I went to school with in middle school in Southern California. And I want to get him on this podcast. And I mentioned it a couple times, like he'd be great to get a fourth person in here. So this is to you, buddy. This is the movie that like we went and saw that summer. Like we snuck into because we couldn't buy tickets to because we weren't 13 yet.
Right. Okay.
And we
Right on.
And we were like, we just kept sitting there and being like, wait for it. Mila Jovovich has boobs. And we just loved that.
Yeah, I think there might have been some pausing when the DVD came out.
Yeah, definitely.
Involved in my basement alone.
And so reading up on this, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that makes so much sense. So Luc Besson's had like this lifelong obsession with female empowerment pieces.
Yeah, well, so he did like look. I did happen to look.
He's
He
done
did Joan
everything.
of Arc afterwards. He did Taken.
Put a pin in Joan of Arc because I want to talk about just quickly.
But that's what I'm talking.
But
So we might want to edit that out just because.
John just nutted over there.
Yeah, because I think I don't edit it out, but we definitely need to clean up. We definitely need to clean that shit up.
I'm gonna loop that a couple of times. So female empowerment, but it's always dressed up as objectification. You know what
It's
I mean?
not dressed up. It is. He is a broken version of what female empowerment means.
Yes. So
It is quintessentially what is the problem with casual misogyny.
Right.
Is you think I'm helping you, I'm for you, but you're not. Power with people is the way it needs to be.
Or
Thank you, Chris. Bring it away.
Or he's just an honest version of the rest of us males.
So he's
I'm just trying to be uncomfortably comfortable all the time.
So he's an unabashed misogynist, clearly, from all of his pieces of work that he's done from Leon the Professional and on. And I used to be a huge fan of Luc Besson, but I think he peaked with The Messenger, which, if you listen to the intro right here, I use a couple of pieces of audio from that because I love that movie. But that one's
The
less
Professional is
less so.
amazing too.
I do love
Although
that
I
you
haven't
picked,
watched that in a while.
Yeah.
Don't ruin it.
No, I won't.
I love that you picked
Natalie
a movie that came out just after the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which we totally digressed away from.
Yeah, we never finished that.
So yeah, I forget where I was at. So Luc Besson,
Female
empowerment. So like he used to be one of my favorite directors as a kid until I realized he was like French Harvey Weinstein. Sorry,
true?
alleged French Harvey
Oh
Weinstein.
man, that
God.
really bums me
That
out.
makes even more sense now.
He's
Because
been
again, it's this
yeah.
like pseudo white knight shit.
Yes.
Like Bruce Willis does his whole like Sleeping Beauty kiss routine. I'm like,
Oh my God, that's so
If it's
wrong.
not misogyny, it's certainly creepy as fuck.
It is, and I mean, you might have thought that was cute
No, at the
when
time,
you were
yeah.
12.
No, it is. He was
But it's
like he was
not.
respectful afterwards. He was like, you know what, you're right, and they made a joke about it. He's like, you're right, and like it was funny, but like I was like, this
Yeah,
is
you
this
don't
is
you don't
why it
kiss the
happens.
sleeping girl, dude.
This
you
is
don't,
what allows
That's true.
Harvey
you don't touch
Weinstein.
the sleeping girl. Like that's so fucked.
Because if there's a cute scenario where like not consent's okay, then like
Yeah.
there's always a case to be made for consent not being okay.
Right,
It's
exactly.
crazy.
You got to draw the line somewhere.
I like to just really quickly to touch on the song "Baby It's Cold Outside." I always like to imagine that there's a verse that we've never heard that happens at the beginning where they're basically negotiating their
game.
consent, and and the rest of the
Every
song.
year, people argue about this song.
Yeah, it's hilarious because I've completely changed my opinion on
Yeah,
it. You
yeah.
know, and I mean, there's a historical nuance with
Yeah,
that time.
right.
period that you need to take into account. But anyway,
That goes for everything.
I bring that up as almost like I think that because so much of our art, when we're looking through it of the lens of, hey, maybe women aren't objects now.
Yeah.
So much of it falls woefully short that we're just throw out tons and tons of movies that, I didn't even think about as a kid. I just enjoyed it. So I think we need to get some sort of a multi-billion-dollar endowment for the arts where we go through all these old shitty misogynistic movies and we film an opening sequence where the characters are like, okay, we're going to be misogynistic. I consent to that, but my safe word is this, and I could tap out at any point, and then you just run the movie through.
Open disclaimer.
Oh God.
We don't even and we don't even need to hire the actors
that's
because
amazing.
we could just get the people that did that awkward General Tarkin CGI for Rogue One.
Oh Jesus Christ. No, but seriously, see Frozen.
Oh no, we're going back.
No. But
I
this is
hear the
important.
word frozen and I think to myself, we're not going to be able to wrap this up by 2:00.
No.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
it's too-
Why am I cockblocking John
it's
today?
too-
Sorry, go ahead.
It's too good of an opportunity to pass up.
You're
So
right.
there's a scene in Frozen where like Anna needs something, and her love interest, all he does and shows up and says, "What you need," and she says it. He's like, "Okay," and then he goes and does it. And I was like, that was the most like female empowerment thing I've ever seen. Is just where the guy shows up and like says, "Yeah, what do you need?" and then does it with no questions.
Yeah.
Doesn't try to explain to her why she's wrong
Well,
or
can
what
I get
else
a
he
back
should
rub
do
for that?
or like what he just says. Yeah, sure, I'll go do it, and then goes and does it.
Yeah.
And so now looking back at like The Fifth Element, and there's just like all these little things that he does throughout the movie, and I'm like, why? Like, and it normally I know when you watch the 10, you just watch it. It's like, oh yeah, that's funny. He got the laugh when she pulled the gun back up, and he's like, okay, yeah, I should have asked for consent. And then I don't know. There's a couple other times throughout the movie where he And the fact that the whole movie just comes down to him saying like "I love you," like she's a supreme being, she's woman, and like there seem these entrapments of like, oh, that's the central character, she's the most powerful, the most important. But no, none of it matters because at the end of the day, the man has to say "I love you"
Exactly.
to allow it to work.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And so now I hate the fucking movie, and I'm angry.
I know.
'cause
See,
I
it
liked
sucks. I don't want to hate it because it was fun when I was a kid, and nostalgia gets in the way of that. But it's like, holy shit, when you look at it now.
And there's weird plot things too. Just on the whole misogyny. There's like they have 2 hours to get back, but they had to go to sleep. Did you light your travel to the cruise ship that's floating outside of why? That doesn't make any sense.
The science behind the science behind The Fifth Element's definitely a little shaky.
And I'm done.
I've always viewed that film, even before,
Because how old were you when it came out?
Oh man, 97. I was well into my 20s.
Okay.
So you had a different take on it than we were because we were like just barely burgeoning into our, we were just starting to get hair on our nuts.
But I roughly I want to say I appreciated it about the same level that you guys did. There's not a whole lot of maturity happening from like 13 until about 27.
But the movie,
full disclosure.
But Harvey Weinstein I'm sorry, that was a Freudian slip. Luc Besson was fucking 38 when this movie came out, so I just feel like there's no excuse. Like, his art is being couched in these misogynistic, creepy terms, and it's very on the nose. It's very telling.
No, I don't think it is on the nose.
You think he doesn't realize he's doing it?
Yeah. I think most people
like,
don't realize they're misogynistic.
Okay. That's a different take that I didn't really think about.
I think
I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if I've really taken a collective
I would
look
like
at
to
his body
see
work.
somebody with the courage to take these themes and to be playful with them in a less one-sided sort of way in modern cinema.
Right.
I would like, because this is stuff that I think that it seems like our two choices are either we're rapey, misogynistic Luc Besson, or we're just like super
alleged.
Wait, as if he's gonna come.
You never know.
Us, yeah. Maybe we can get Mobius's lawyers to help us out.
I don't want to get demonetized. Sorry.
Man, weren't you just talking about not being so into money and stuff like that? Now we're just
give me that money, bitches, bunnies and hoes.
That's true. My point that I was trying to make is meaningless.
I'm sorry, Chris.
It's funny because I haven't seen the film since it. Maybe it.
Yeah.
It came out on my DVD. Was that even a thing back then?
Yeah.
So I have a foggier but a super fond memory of that movie.
Oh, I watched it like 3 times this weekend.
Oh snap! Yeah, see, like I watched it just 6 months ago, and like again for this, and it was like, I think with each viewing, it's you start to see the porous holes in it, and like I think they were always there, but I just was willing to kind of look past them because it is fun. It's a fun ride, you know. Like it's a campy. It's silly. It's designed to be a screwball comedy,
Colorful, tightly edited. I know that you didn't like Chris Tucker's character, but I thought that he was just that like third act, like just how can we take this already Keystone Cop car chase and amp it up to 1,000.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, see, there was some like slapstick elements to it. And I don't know. Again, setting all the social commentary stuff aside, from like I don't know how I felt about it, because like sometimes it was weird in the scene, the tone it was trying to do, because like at the beginning there's like the whole thing where he like locks the general in the freezer and they come out looking like popsicles.
Right, like are they dead?
This is when the other casual misogynies he locks Lilu in the shower and it goes up and he's like auto wash. He's like, oh, I didn't know it was the auto wash. Hey, also, why is he's got a weird angry Jewish mother? Like, why is that a thing in the film too? Like that was another thing that was just weird to me.
Right, who's also uncredited for some reason.
She's just like the stereotypical like Jewish mom, and like I was like, why? Anyways, and so
because it's funny because I'm Luc Besson and I'm 16 and this is funny.
This slapstick, or like there was a thing when
I don't think it's funny.
Bilbo Baggins, with the bomb on the door, and him and Chris Tucker, and he's like blah, 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 blah. It's like the Looney Tune show where you can't say the word bomb, and I'm like, I'm like, what? What is going on?
No, it's sad because, like you're saying, the deeper you dive into it, the less favorable this movie seems.
So this to summarize this entire conversation, because I think we pretty much have consensus on this. Other than all the Nazi shit, Leni Riefenstahl's films are A-okay. That's kind of what we're saying here.
Yeah.
Like, how can you separate?
I don't
that's the
know.
thing. It's
Yeah.
like I'm sitting here and we're weighing the positives, and I'm just kind of thinking in the back of my mind. And I have a lot of films that I put in this category, and maybe this is why. I watched it once, I fucking loved it, and I never want to see it again.
Like a one-timer. Yes, but for me, and I think John, it's something I've probably seen perennially like 50 times. Like I don't know, I've watched this movie a lot. It's there's some quotable parts to it too that you always like to laugh about when she's like chicken, chicken good.
Right.
I mean,
I look at it, I'm like, just cringe, creepy. I hate
Cringe City.
I hate all of it, and I'm sad that I do not like this movie anymore.
Well, okay, now, and I'm sad about it too because I remember loving the shit out of it. And my favorite comic artist was informed
Brilliant
visual
Stone.
stuff, or was
Yeah.
that bummed me out too. But I mean, if I have to give up Fifth Element for a society that maybe treats women a little less shitty, I'm okay to let it go.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Back to Frozen.
That was unintentional.
Insert Frozen track here.
Can we edit this version in? I'm okay to let it go. I think there needs to be a pause there if we're going for the comedic effect.
Fair enough.
Please,
Fair enough.
I need my soundboard.
We'll work on that.
I was gonna make a point here too. So yeah,
Sorry.
I guess what Chris is saying is we can't just pick and choose. I guess it's like you either have to appreciate it and like it, or it's crap.
Oh, I can't like this movie anymore. The only honorable mention I'll give it is that the CGI is held up a lot better than I thought.
And then
it would.
when you read about all the stuff outside the movie too, that's what really starts to get me. So, a factoid I didn't realize was that Luc Besson was actually married to the actress that played Plava Laguna, and the blue girl that sings the song.
Oh, okay.
He was engaged to her
no joke.
on production, and then after this movie wrapped, he married Mila Jovovich. I'm like, what a dick fucking move.
Jeez, dude.
So no judgments, I guess. I'll just put that out there and not say anything else. Just kind of put that out in the ether and let you guys make up your own minds about that.
I want to go. I just want to write the Fifth Element on a piece of paper, go to my backyard, dig a hole, and just dump it in there and then just say goodbye, basically.
Yeah. And I'm just like,
And I did what's even more is like I didn't have any intentions of this being my reaction to the movie when I watched it again.
right.
Because
yeah.
I watched it again. First time I think was early Saturday.
Yeah.
Was just I kind of like had it on while I was working on my cabinet in my lunchroom, and I'm just kind of like, what? Like, was this always there? Like,
Yeah, was it
because I
always
didn't
like
remember
that?
any of this, and then I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like that says more about me, the fact that I didn't notice or remember any of this the first time.
Right,
Granted,
yeah.
I was 14 or whatever, but
You were on autopilot probably where you're watching it. It's like, yeah.
and so then, but then I'm like, what's changed
Yeah.
since then?
Chris, something you would probably really like about this film, if you haven't watched it, did you watch it recently, or was it just something you remember before? But
I was totally just going off of memory. And it's funny because I think I gave it like a 5-star rating on Letterboxd. I'm like,
rewatch
I'm
it.
like, yeah.
But something I think
I'm just deleting it.
something I think we would all love was Eric Serra's music. That was one piece of this movie. I bought the soundtrack because I loved the music
was pretty,
in this movie.
I remember that too.
I loved how it was integrated with how it paced the movie out and how it kind of drove the story. And I feel like Eric Serra has this really unique, kind of interesting, like choral sound and stuff that he uses with all of his music that fits so well with the sci-fi universe. I was like, if there's any good takeaway from this movie, it was definitely Eric Serra's music. And I'll just leave that out there because, yeah.
So, meanwhile, this film was hugely successful, if I'm not
Yeah, I meant to
mistaken.
look. How did
I mean,
it do at the
it's
box
certainly
office? Did it
among
do okay?
teenage to mid-20s boys, you
Yeah,
know.
it hit the demographic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, meanwhile, in society, in America, as this film was coming out, we were, because if a bill was passed in 1996, luckily it didn't begin to get implemented until 97. Here we are, Telecommunications Act of 1996, that it deregulated, I think, a number of industries. The one that Michael touched on earlier was that it allowed for there were anti-monopoly laws keeping, I believe, print and radio and television news entities from consolidating into too large a group. And it also, it really is like the best and worst legislation of the 90s because it also deregulated.
other than the crime bill, but yeah.
The telco. Oh, yeah, touche.
Sorry.
No, you're right. But it also deregulated the local level telecom.
Right.
The baby bells, as they called them, and by breaking. So basically, the baby bells were sitting on broadband DSL technology for about 4 or 5 years prior to this law being passed, and they were sitting on it. They weren't doing anything with it because
There's no motivation to kind of push.
Yeah, because they were selling us the people who needed a fatter pipes. They were selling us ISDN lines and T1 lines.
T1s. Oh man.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Dude, I had a 28.8 for years.
But an ISDN line was maybe twice the capacity of a regular copper line. It even came over and it was like 10 times as expensive.
Oh yeah.
And so here we are. This bill passes. I go from being a guy who was installing phone systems. I love that gig.
Pots?
To a guy who was installing Nortel systems. They're rest in peace. I think that company's gone. To a guy who was installing DSL for a company called Covad. Salary doubled overnight. And while I was on that job, I taught myself how to code.
Nice.
And so when the telecom industry dumped out in the early 2000s, I just made the shift over to software. I'm very lucky. So this bill has at least, and again, this is through just the lens of how it affected me personally, which I typically despise people who they formulate their opinions without considering the negative impact that it has on others and other groups.
Right.
That's like just privilege, and that's just, no bueno. But
bueno, John Dayton.
Yeah. But having said that, at the time, I was a huge fan of the bill and have periodically touched on how, it's such a great bill. It's such a great bill. But I mean, clearly there's an underside to it that you brought up, and that's, if that's a real poison to our society.
It
that
is,
corporate media conglomerates are a thing.
Because now they give us only one one spin on the news, and it's we will control you with here's the message, and we're all talking about the coronavirus because every news agency is talking about
one
the
or two
same-
spins, I'd say, but
right.
both, at times equally as overgeneralizing or sensationalizing or
Right. Sensationalizing.
I was kind of digging that we had like a little music to kind of break up the. Can you take? Sorry, Mike Tuthill, you've been in charge of my animals during this. Can you make it so she doesn't eat the plastic? Oh my God, that stupid cat. Thanks, man.
There you go.
So everything that the cat messes with, Mike's gonna put in his pocket, so he can't get to it. This should get interesting.
Sorry. Yeah. So. I was gonna say, I guess none of this other shit matters. Like, that's my sign off. But I mean, no. Yours is nothing matters. Mine is nothing is real.
That's really all I have is. So basically, in this, to summarize my experience with this podcast so far, it was. So we've taken a movie that I liked in my 20s and we basically destroyed it.
Yeah.
And then we've taken a piece of legislation that I thought was just a really great thing.
Sorry, Chris.
And you've destroyed that too. And in both cases, I'm fine with letting it go, but I am.
Just stop. Just kill yourself.
I already said that, and I hated myself for saying it the first time. Yeah. All right. And now while I'm killing myself, I'll let Mike take over here.
John, you mentioned hackers. I think we need to do hackers. He said hack the planet. I'm like, oh, fuck, we need to talk about hackers.
It holds up.
Oh my God, it does. And then here's the neck breather guy.
Hey guys, talk about my internet speeds. I'll give you some speedier lines.
Oh man, I used to do.
I think that was great. I like that you dragged it out a little bit to just a really. It went from he's making a reference to that that neckbeard geek to almost like the neckbeard guy's in the room.
Yeah,
He's in here. He's talking about 56K.
Man,
It's a lot. That was a lot of K back in the day.
yeah.
it was.
Okay, the last thing I was gonna point out was, John, did you catch the Nietzsche quote from Fifth Element?
The Zorg says, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Yeah,
I had to bring this all back. Bring us
I
back
said I was
to
gonna not do Nietzsche.
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger was the quote Gary Oldman throws out there. Even though that's not the actual line, but I get
Do
it.
you have it? I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't.
No, it's what doesn't kill us makes one stronger, I think was the actual quote, but it's close enough. He paraphrased it, and I was like, oh,
I'm trying to remember.
John.
I'm trying to remember where that's from. I don't remember.
I don't know either, but I Googled it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Can we throw in like a warning at the beginning of this that some things that you loved as a kid are going to be
We're going to destroy them.
we're going to destroy them?
Yeah. And it makes me sad, but I mean, at least by talking about this stuff, we're opening up avenues to talk about other things and maybe just...
Well, that's the point, right?
I don't know.
This
None of
goes
this
back
shit
to the
matters.
uncomfortable comfortableness or comfortable
I
uncomfortableness.
think we've kind of made the case for how remakes can be a good thing. You just want to strip out some of the stuff that makes half of the world feel like shit.
I mean, yeah, and
then redo the film.
Updates and remakes, can be good if you put them in the context that is now that we recognize and
let's get a director who isn't going to just, creep on kids and young women. Let's call Woody Allen in and see if he's available.
Yeah. What about that guy from The Pianist who had to flee the country because he had sex with a 13-year-old?
Oh, is that what's his name? Polanski?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
Let's get Roman Polanski too. Maybe he's free.
Yeah, for sure.
God.
Oh, Jesus.
Or we should put them all in a room and then just, flog them.
Maybe we should just tell Luc Besson to stop making fucking movies like Anna. Like, did you see that?
No,
But I saw Valerian and the Lost.
That didn't work either.
Valerian and the Lost 2 Hours of My Life.
Yeah, it's just such bullshit. It's the same shit over and over again.
Look at Taken.
That's a sad thing too. Is I like Taken, but I'm like, at least it wasn't all. I mean, it's using the female on a pedestal, like she's woman in peril trope.
But that's what I'm saying, right?
Which is less misogynistic, but it's
no. There's there's three ways to look at how you interact with other people. You either have
Yeah.
power over them,
Yeah.
right, which is the good old authoritarianism we're used to. You can have power for them, which seems nice because I'm doing this for you, but you're still dictating what it is they can and can't do.
Yeah.
And then there's like power with people, right, where
Yeah.
you actually interact with each other as fellow human beings and work cooperatively to do something. And that's the way things ideally should be. Certainly in your daily life, you're going between all three of them, right? But when you have a choice to do it,
Which now I think about it, I'm like, oh man, The Messenger. There was this god awful like 5-minute rape scene in that I'm like, oh, I forgot about that.
Jesus Christ.
Fuck. And I'm like, I thought he peaked with that movie because that movie is just fucking amazing. Like otherwise.
No, just burn it all. I'm done.
Oh man, I went off. Like Anna, like the last thing I'll say was Anna. Did you see that movie Atomic Blonde? It's like basically the same story.
No, I heard about it. I don't think I saw
Fake
it, though.
female empowerment stuff. So it's like Anna was basically Atomic Bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, administrative note. I think when we do pick on a film, when we pick a film,
No, fuck
and or pick on it, it just seems like we're gonna kind of drift into other stuff that director's made. So, you know,
Yeah.
as time allows, if we want to
Right.
watch some of the other highlighted films from that director, and back to the if I could go way back to the beginning of this episode to just mention the discussion we were having about the did the shot help the film,
Yeah.
or was it just kind of the director jerking off in the corner?
Right.
Let's wrap it. Does somebody have a thanks for listening to Bro Safe Nerd Alert?
Bro safe.
I mean,
Nerd alert.
you need to sign off too.
Nothing matters.
Misogyny bad, massage is good.
Well, thanks for listening, and nothing is real.
Oh my God, you guys are depressing the shit out of me right now.
No, it's like a thing. I gotta buck the system. You know what, everyone? Have a great day.
I think we are the system. We're white males. We are the system.
What's the
Rage against us.
what's another Al Franken? Albert Smiley. What was that character?
Stuart Smalley.
Stuart
Smiley. Yeah, the affirmation dude.
Yeah, doggone it.
how much I care.